All right, so hopefully that's still streaming. Hey, brother.
Hi, brother.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for doing this. So, here is the question. With a right-wing activist Supreme Court, does that make local elections more or less important? And why?
Yeah, so definitely more important.
That was going to be my guess.
Yeah, it's a good guess. And so the Supreme Court right now is attacking a couple areas that Democrats and liberals have sort of relied on the federal government to protect. Obviously, recognizing the fundamental right to privacy and the fundamental right to control one's reproductive decisions and get an abortion, or the fundamental right to marry the person that you love. And these have all come from the Supreme Court on those. And the Supreme Court has always been a fairly regressive institution, but nonetheless, they have still provided some of these rights that they've recognized these rights that are within the Constitution. And this court is attacking all of those. Obviously, with Dobbs overturning Roe, and that's just the beginning, including the right to contraceptives, the right to have sex with the person that you want in the privacy of your own home, the right to marry the person you love. And so there's all of these fundamental rights that are under attack. And then the other thing the Supreme Court is doing is taking apart the administrative state. And this is like the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. Congress vests power in all of these agencies to set regulations and laws, because they have the expertise and the scientists and the institutional knowledge to do those sorts of things. And so Congress will tell them, we want clean air, and then you all, the scientists, you make that happen. And the Supreme Court is also really hostile to that administrative state. And so both of these are going to, the federal government is going to be taking a step back from these really big issues on how we live our lives and how we remain like a healthy society and a fair society, to the extent that we are, which isn't a great extent. But any fairness that does exist within our society, the federal government is going to be taking a step back from protecting that and enforcing those.
Okay, so let me see if I can rephrase this in a way that's more simple to see if I'm understanding what you're saying. Basically, you're saying right now, a lot of protections are built in for, like, environmental protections, for example, are built in at the federal government level, and that the Supreme Court has, up until now, pretty consistently upheld the administrative state allowances, like the EPA. And now, with this Supreme Court, which is terribly conservative, they're dismantling the administrative state, saying the EPA actually doesn't have jurisdiction. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
To be able to tell us that we have to have clean water or clean air. Like, how dare they? And so, therefore, those types of protections, that we're not going to be able to rely upon the federal government to provide them. So it's going to fall to state governments.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, in Washington State, for example, I think there's little question that abortion will remain legal on a state level, as long as it's not prohibited nationwide, which it very well could be. If we lose the Senate, the House, and the presidency, then it will be. But that aside,
the Washington State Senate was controlled by Republicans until 2015.
Exactly, and it only takes one branch of government for the Republicans in Washington to control, where they could then have a veto over any of these things, even if they can't, have a flat outlawing of abortion. Any progress we want to make on any of these, Republicans would have a veto over all of it, and so would just stop all of it. There'd be no progress. and God forbid if we lost all three. And I live in Virginia right now, which obviously has been trending really blue for the last 15 years, and now we're at risk of losing. We already have lost one house and the governor's mansion, and we have one seat majority in the other house. So, I mean, God forbid if that happens in Washington, but even without that, Republicans would have a veto, even if they just get one house, and there'd be no progress to be made.
So after we saw the Supreme Court overturn Roe, what does that tell us, or like what can we surmise from that looking forward?
Well, this is the logic that they said that they relied on, this like fundamental right to privacy, and looking at whether it's deeply rooted in our nation's history and traditions, and they said that abortion wasn't. And so that logic that they used is going to be the same logic that they can apply to everything else, all of these other rights, because of course, a right to abortion or a right to marry the person you love or any other right that isn't just bestowed on straight, white, cis men, of course, won't be deeply rooted in our history and tradition, because the history and traditions of our country is deeply racist, deeply sexist, deeply homophobic, deeply transphobic. So this court's looking for a deeply rooted history of abortion or a deeply rooted history of any sort of rights. They won't find it, and they're going to use that to overturn all of these things that conservative activists have hated and been trying to overturn, and now they have the votes on the Supreme Court to do it.
Like gay marriage.
Like gay marriage, like gay sex and Lawrence, or like contraceptives and Griswold, and the majority in Dobbs that overturned Roe, they said that these other rights weren't under attack, but it was kind of the whole logic of the opinion undermines that. And then Justice Thomas wrote in a concurrence that actually they certainly are, and like please bring those cases to us because we're ready. And so does Thomas have 4 other justices that agree with that? I think there's a really good chance of that, and if not right now, within the next few years, as this court gets settled in, who knows what they're going to go for. And so it just devolves down to the state to make sure that the states are offering those protections and robustly and improving them. Though Washington State is talking right now with Oregon and California about some abortion protections and about making the West Coast, a safe place and a sanctuary for abortion access and abortion rights. And that's the sort of thing that we're going to need to have Democrats controlling Washington in order to have that sort of progress, and not just on abortion, although that's massively critical and devastating, but on all of these other rights also that are going to be devolving to the states. So we're going to need to have the Democrats in office to work with other like-minded states to try to protect these rights as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then would you say that it's more important now than ever before that Washington State has a Democratic legislature?
Absolutely.
And do you have any suggestions on how one could go about helping bring that about?
I do. Obviously vote. Obviously go to Q the Blue. I went to Q the Blue in 2018, and it was a great event. I got to speak with the candidates directly. I hosted a fundraiser for one of the candidates, Mona Doss, who's stepping aside for another fantastic candidate coming in. And so I got to talk with them and ask them questions, tell them my concerns in an intimate setting, and contribute money if you're able, but definitely vote as much, which is another thing to make sure we keep Washington blue. Another thing that's under attack is the Voting Rights Act, and just access to the ballot in general. And it's a lot of states and a lot of people are losing that access. And the Supreme Court, it's part of their project as well. And so in states where we do have this access, it's really important that we use it and protect it, reinforce it.
Cool. Is there anything else that you think that people are misunderstanding about the Supreme Court and how it relates to local politics that you wanted to mention, or do you feel as though you fully explained that?
I don't think so. If there's anything else that you have in mind, but I think right now, making sure that we keep state governments, expand in state governments, and then do everything we can to hold the Congress as well, because and of course, if you're voting on the local elections, you're going to be voting for Congress as well. But if we lose that, Republicans will pass a nationwide abortion ban on day one in 2025 if they have all three, the Senate, the House, and the presidency. And so it's really important to vote in those as well.
Yeah, and in Washington State, ballots for the primary were mailed out, I think, yesterday. I got mine yesterday, and there's only like 5 things on it. It's a really easy one. And the only one that is maybe not totally obvious would be Secretary of State, which definitely you want to vote for Steve Hobbs, because the rest of these people are, for the most part, a bunch of right-wing Looney Tunes. And that's not who we want in there. So come to Cue the Blue, meet the candidates. So we'll have Senator Claire Wilson, Senator Mona Das, Senator Emily Randall, Representative Deborah Entenman, and Council Member Satwander Kaur, who is running to take the seat that is currently represented by Senator Mona Das. So it is Saturday, August 13th from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. at St. John's at 719 East Pike Street. And it's going to be a super fun event. And we're going to raise a bunch of money for these candidates. And we're going to sign people up to volunteer and talk about what you can do to make sure that we do keep the Washington State Legislature blue, because Lord knows we don't want to have Republican control of that body. So Patrick, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And you can get tickets by going to www.dazzlecompany.com/BLUE, or you can email me, Logan, Logan, at dazzlecompany.com. Or you can drive my employees absolutely bananas by calling 1-800-214-1417 and asking as many questions as you want about Cue the Blue. All right. Thanks so much, Patrick. Appreciate it. Love you. Talk to you soon.
Love you.
Bye.